Senator Rain on debate.
Thank you very much. Honourable Senators, I speak today on Bill C-45 and the misgivings I have about our government's rush to legalize the recreational consumption of marijuana. I'm not against eventually regulating the non-medicinal use of marijuana. I'm just very worried that we are moving too quickly and are not prepared for the many unintended consequences that seem certain. And that's why, like others, I feel the study of this bill in the Senate is so important. The Liberal Party's 2015 election platform promised to decriminalize marijuana possession, creating a task force of experts in public health, substance abuse, and law enforcement. And they promised to design a new system of strict marijuana sales and distribution that would legislate a strict system for marijuana sales and distribution with appropriate federal and provincial excise taxes applied. In the rhetoric around the legislation, ministers continually give rationale that they are motivated to protect the health and safety of our youth. I would argue that Bill C-45 goes well beyond what the Liberal platform stated, and that it has not received enough input from the jurisdictions that will have to deal with the consequences, especially from municipalities and First Nations. Most Canadians do not understand the difference between decriminalization and legalization, and they are very different. And while the government's task force did listen to some knowledgeable experts, there are still many groups and individuals against the changes that are being proposed. Groups that include, for example, Drug Free Kids Canada. Instead of taking responsibility for designing a strict system to regulate the sale and distribution of marijuana, it appears that the government has downloaded this to the provinces and territories, and the result will inevitably be a hodgepodge of legislation and regulatory regimes that will certainly make things more difficult to control. I will focus today on the main concerns I have if the cannabis legislation is passed as it now stands. First, the minimum age of 18 is too young. Second, we still do not have any effective and targeted campaigns on the harms of using marijuana. And finally, in the rush to pass this bill, we risk making things worse, not better. Honourable Senators, I think we can agree that we need to establish a minimum safe age for consumption, and this should be established and it should be consistent for all of Canada. Why is the federal government not taking responsibility for setting the minimal age for all Canadians? It does not make sense to have different ages in different jurisdictions. All Canadian youths deserve to have protection. The minimum age as set by C-45 is 18, which can be raised if a province chooses. Why does this legislation not have a minimum age that respects the known dangers to the developing brain? Why was the age not set at 25, which would send a strong message to kids and youth that using marijuana at a younger age is not safe? A minimum age of 25 is supported by many organizations and individuals with experience in dealing with the issues caused by early use. This is the age that is supported by science, not just by giving in to the current situation. Personally, I find it very upsetting to hear people say, well, kids can get marijuana easily now, so we should just legalize it. When they say the kids can get it in back of the schoolyard now, I ask myself, if the kids know where the dealers are, why don't the police know? And why are the dealers not being arrested? I truly believe that C-45 will make it easier for the dealers to keep dealing, and certainly easier for older youth to sell drugs to younger children. Everything I've read and the many kids I've spoken to show that Canadian youth have become convinced that marijuana is not all that harmful. Not all Canadian youth. I will say that there's a pretty big percentage that understand the harm being done and stay away from marijuana use. But so many of them today are convinced that marijuana really isn't harmful. We know our young people are using it more than other countries, and that they do not accept that it is harmful. It's obvious that they have been influenced by the underground promotion of marijuana. And since the medical use was approved, this acceptance seems to have grown. By establishing a legal age of 18, We are reinforcing the message that cannabis is not a harmful substance. So I implore senators to support an amendment to change the minimum age. We have a responsibility as senators to provide sober second thought, and it's never been needed more. Honourable Senators, now I ask, what has happened to the promised promotional campaigns to educate children, youth and their families about the harms done by early use of marijuana? Last September it was announced there would be $9.6 million to implement an educational campaign. Then in October, another $36.4 million over 5 years was committed. Last month, Minister Petitpas Taylor assured us, and I quote, "We're developing tools right now through my department, Health Canada, and there's going to be a national launch of a program come March." Well, it's March 20th, and I've not seen a new campaign. I've asked teachers and parents, and they say nothing new on the messaging has been done, in spite of the impending legalization, which they all feel will make access easier. I sure hope the launch comes soon, and I sure hope the message will be marijuana is harmful before age 25, and not just. The legal age for marijuana will be age 18, which kids will interpret as it's okay at age 18. Well, we know it's not okay. In speaking to school administrators from Washington State, they told me that their legalization was implemented too fast and without proper planning. They told me that the public education piece is extremely important and that it takes time and lots of money. They feel that Canada has a chance to do it better if we start with good legislation from the national government. The problems they are facing at the state level would have been less, but they warned, if you don't do it right, it will be very hard to change later. To do it right, we need to make sure we know what our goals are. Do we just want to make sure that what is on the market comes from legal sources and that it's been tested to make sure it's not contaminated? Are we so interested in getting tax revenues from the various levels of government that we're ignoring the market forces that will keep the underground supply going? Will a combination of the two supply sources result in increased targeting of youth? It's very complicated, and we need to get it right. Honourable Senators, let me tell you what's been happening in BC and how out of control it's become. There's always been a drug culture on the West Coast. When the medical use of marijuana was legalized in Canada, the hope was to implement research on how the active ingredients could be used for medicinal purposes. Unfortunately, marijuana dispensaries quickly sprung up without proper controls to ensure what was being dispensed was actually for medical purposes. Most doctors, citing a lack of training, rightly so, would not prescribe marijuana when patients asked for it. Dispensaries found other doctors who would prescribe by phone for a fee without even seeing the patient. Certainly this was not a diagnosis. It became a joke, and now it is free-for-all. Excuse me. With authorities turning a blind eye and many, many unregulated dispensaries, you can also easily get cannabis products delivered by mail or other means. I'm not sure what's happening in other jurisdictions, but I'm pretty sure it's similar to what's going on in BC. 2 weeks ago, someone dropped off an envelope at the reception desk for a guest at our hotel. When the intended recipient complained, we learned it had been delivered to the wrong room, where the envelope was opened and the contents eaten, fortunately by adults. Now, I've not seen these products before, but the attractively designed empty packets that I have here were a shock to me. It's a shockingly strong product with 120 milligrams of THC in each cherry-flavored jelly candy, enough to make a child very seriously ill. When you Google Canada's best medicinal quality cannabis products, you will find a very attractive website selling 311 different products online. Under the FAQ link on their website, for the question, is it safe to order from them? I quote, "We're one of 120 plus dispensaries in Vancouver, over 300 in Canada, that are not operating under the federally approved medical marijuana system. To qualify for under the federal system, you'll need to get a doctor's approval and Health Canada's permission to purchase from one of the 26 licensed producers. Vancouver City Hall and the Vancouver Police Department, and this is on their website, have allowed dispensaries to proliferate so people can safely access medicine, so long as there are no sales to minors or any gang affiliations. Further, the website states, there are about 20 mail-order marijuana sites in Vancouver. Vancouver has been shipping weed in the mail since the 90s, and to date, we know of no one who's ever been charged with receiving pot in the mail. And honorable senators, yesterday a friend showed me photographs of the outdoor market in downtown Vancouver, where cookies and candies are freely sold to passers-by. Do we really want this to continue? Certainly the doctors do not want to be dealing with the consequences, especially for children. Today I heard on the news, I woke up this morning to this, that small batch marijuana producers will be able to grow 500 square meters worth of crops. Honestly, we are fooling ourselves if we think that the availability and promotion of legal marijuana will lead to decreased usage, especially by youth. Colleagues, we need to come to grips with our inability to control existing ways of purchasing marijuana. We need a strong and enforceable federal law with strong regulations, and this will take time to develop. I will not be supporting the passage of this bill at second reading. I will support amending the bill to increase the minimum age to increase the minimum age to 25, and to delay the implementation until a strong campaign on the harms of cannabis use has been done, and to put in place laws and regulations to enforce a strong national regime. We are going too far, too fast. We need to take the time to get this right. Thank you.
Senator McGuinness. Oh, no, sorry, Senator Omidbar, did you have a question?
You would accept one. I listened with great interest to your speech and to Senator Mitchell's speech about we invest our young adults with certain responsibilities at a certain age. So we allow them to drive, we allow them to vote when they're 19, we allow them to get married, we allow them to drink and drive and all of that. I wonder if you will consider the policy or the absence of policy coherence if we have, on the one hand, a whole raft of rights that they get when they're either 18 or 19, and we separate out this for when they're 25. I wonder if when I've talked to young people about it, they have said that is too much of a nanny state. You're nannying us, whatever that may mean. So I wonder if you could give me your response to it's okay to do all these other things that are really, really important in life, and we're going to hold you back from this other right until you're 25.
Senator Rae.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Omidbar. I appreciate your question, and I appreciate that there's a very different outlook between people who accept an age of 18 and many people in Canada who want the age to be a scientifically based age of 25. Now, I know that some people might call this nanny state, but I like to call it an educated state. We're doing a big change here. It's a lot easier to move the age down.
Excuse me, Senator Rain. Honourable Senators, it's 6 p.m. Is it your wish that we not see the clock? Yeah. Agreed? Senator Rain.
Thank you. So it's easier to move the age down if we find out that it's too high. But how can we send a message out to the younger teenagers and the children that it's okay at 18 when we know it's not okay? We know it does harm until you're 25. How can you tell the kids it's okay at 18? That's what I don't understand. We need to be consistent. I really believe we do need to move on this, and we need to decriminalize it, legalize it, whatever you want to call it. But we need to take an approach like they did in Portugal, where Portugal has used a health-based approach right from the beginning. Portugal decriminalized all use of all drugs and treated it with a health approach. We're not doing that. We're using drugs as a means of, we're legalizing it, I think, so that we can tax it and get some money. But I don't know, I want to decrease the harm. In Portugal, they have one of the lowest uses of drugs anywhere in the world, and of drug addicts. And people who are addicted in Portugal are treated as a medical problem, not a criminal problem. Portugal only this year in January, that they finally are now moving towards legalizing the medical use. No, not use, selling medicinal marijuana. Okay? Because they've been able to use it, but now they will have a regime to sell it. But they waited more than 10 years to do that. And the sale of non-medical marijuana will still be very, very restricted. So I just think that we really are going too far too fast. And we have to be very careful about the messaging. I kind of understand why maybe they're slow.
Senator Rain, excuse me, sorry for interrupting you again, but your time has expired. Are you asking for more time to continue?
No, I think I've had enough. Thank you very much.